My name is Drew, and I'm the Aspiring Master, and welcome to the Aspiring Master Presents. This is a show where we talk about the meanings, misunderstandings, and insights about the important words we use and misuse on a daily basis. Really understanding what we're truly meaning when we talk allows us to convey and explain ourselves better to others. This not only allows us clearer communication so we can get what we need quicker and with less stress, but also helps us understand ourselves in more depth than we thought possible. Today on our show, I'd like to welcome my special guest, Dean McDonald, a friend and another advocate for personal growth and personal awareness. Today, we'll be continuing our discussion on the word should and how we might be unconsciously using it. Here we go. I in my show on anger, and I say anger's a flag. It is something that you can go, I'm angry. It's like, okay, hold it. Now we know that we're angry, and we go, okay, why? Well, because they. Right? It's like, oh, okay, whoa. Like, that's great because we got it. So something happened that created a situation that we became angry, right? Okay, great. So what am I afraid of? Right? And it's like, what? I'm not afraid. Right? It's like, yes, you are. Because anger is an expression of fear. So what is it in this situation that makes me afraid? I'm afraid of losing you, or I'm afraid that you will shun me and walk away and I won't get my $20 from you, or whatever, right? Whatever that could be. So it's a flag that says, I need to question here. And I think should is also a flag that says, I need to question why I should. Mm-hmm. And to what I am saying should too. Right? It may well be that your spouse has some expectations of what you should be doing. Even you do. I mean, when you go into a relationship, whether we like it or not, and especially if you're in a marriage type relationship, and especially if you get married, we have these models in our heads. Both the spouses have different models, by the way. Mm-hmm. The other spouse has a model of their parents, and you have a model of your parents, right? And all of the things that you absorbed when you were like from 0 to, 13 or 14, when you were really starting to formulate your personality, you absorbed all of the things about your parents' relationship. Did they kiss? Were they intimate? Were they affectionate? Too affectionate?
Yell.
Not? Did they yell? Did they scream at each other? Were they harping on each other about the same things all the time? Were they, all of those factors, and there's millions and millions and millions of them, by the way. For those people that think that there's only a few, there's millions of them, that we now have created the expectations of, we are comparing ourselves to that mirror. And there may have been some really cool bonding moments with dad, right? Son, you know that you're having a good relationship if, and they give you these chunks of wisdom, or at least wisdom that they have at that time that work for them. But a lot of the times those were just coping mechanisms that they're giving you, right? Instead of the real in-depth looks.
Well, and of course, in any relationship, you hopefully communicate and figure out strategies that work for you and make your relationship function. So I want to circle back a little bit to when you were talking about anger being a flag, should being a flag. Mm-hmm. I told you, I haven't told viewers, but I was at a course at UVic on inner peace, being taught by a Buddhist monk. Just a short, small course, super amazing. And of course, he's talking about anger. And what anger, these 5 stages and all that. But I really, really notice now when something annoys me. Mm-hmm. And it can be, my partner makes tea, and then halfway after it's steeped, they don't like leaving the tea bags in, so they throw them in the sink and the drain. And then, you have to move them later, and they're all kind of wet and cold, and it's annoying to me. Right. And I just go, well, it's not bothering me anymore. But now every time I'm annoyed, I go, what's that?
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, but
hang on. That's ridiculous. What's
this is,
happening?
but you're already re-educating your shoulds. Really.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. Is like you shouldn't put those in the sink because they get gross and mucky and somebody has to clean them up, and that's usually me. You shouldn't be doing that. And once you recognize, like what you're saying is, you recognize the anger, because the anger is a really good indicator for should, because should is another in that chain, another thing that you can look at in that chain, going to what am I afraid of. It's like, why is this happening? Because I should, or because they shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I figured out after my first major relationship was that I was too stuck on what everybody should be doing. And it's like, wait a minute. So they don't clean up after themselves in the kitchen. So what? If it bugs you, clean it up. It's not like I'm broken, right? It's not like I'm not capable of doing it. It's just, I would rather not, right? But I just went, you know what? I've got lots of energy. It's there. If it really is bugging me, then I'd better do something about it. Well, harping on another person is not going to do anything about it.
I think a piece of that for me is you continue with, say, the kitchen. I like my kitchen to be clean. I declare I like that, but I also clean up after myself.
Right.
So for me, I'm doing what I think is the right thing to do. I'm leading by example.
Right.
And then the other person doesn't. I'm not saying my partner,
right.
but I'm
just
but
whomever, right? Like roommates, or whatever. Yeah.
Roommates, and they don't, and then I get annoyed. It's like, what am I? Your slave?
Right.
Do you expect me to do it? Like,
well, and truth be told, right? You can go down that route, and you can make other people responsible for your feelings, because that's what that is. You can also leave it, and you can also be responsible for your stuff, which will annoy the crap out of you anyway, because you, in your mind, you have this rule set that says this needs to be cleaned. Yeah. So if you acknowledge that you have that rule set for you, right? And you know that going into your kitchen and having it dirty would annoy you, then you have to take responsibility for that and say, then I will clean this up in order for me to get this thing to shut up in my head, or I can figure out how to grow past this thing in my head. Right? It's sure. Because that's personal responsibility. I don't make anybody responsible for what should be happening in the house, right? You know, Talia gets on me for tracking in dirt on my shoes, right? And I've just not been conscious of it most of my life. I just like do that, and if it's dirty, I vacuum it up later, or I sweep it up, or whatever, right? I just do it later. It doesn't bug me, but because it bugs her, right? There's some responsibility that I've chosen to be a part of, right? And so here comes some of that negotiation, and I also have to tell her that it's probably not going to happen all the time. And it might be something that you want to look at figuring out for you so that you don't get annoyed, right? It's like you get annoyed, and then you get annoyed at me because I'm not being recalcitrant, right? Because I'm me, and I'm okay with me, right? It's like I'm not, and I'm also okay with doing my best, whatever part of the day happens. It's like, so she gets uptight, and I know she gets uptight, and I care about her, and I would rather not have her be uptight because I want other things in the future. So I work on it, but I'm not beating myself up because I do it. I just, go, it's something I'm working on. And it may never, ever happen. I'm okay with that. She might not be, but I think that she is, like she still likes me most of the time. I love throwing her under the bus in these shows. It's so much fun. Anyway,
I did wonder.
Yeah, she's like, oh, there he is, throwing me under. She edits this, right? She sees all of it. She can edit it out. I'm fine. um, but that should expectational idea, and you saying, well, what am I, your punching bag, or I'm your
Servant.
right. I mean, and I used to think that way, absolutely. But I found that I was so much angrier at the world. I was
Mhm.
so much angry at other people for not conforming to whatever it is ideal that I have. Because there's junkyard dogs out there. They smoke in their house, and their dog is shitting on the floor. It's like, whatever, right? Those are people that do that. That's the environment they grew up in. That's how they do it. I'm not going to hang out at their place, right?
Mhm.
It's like, nah, your place is disgusting, which is fine. It's your place. You can do whatever you want, but I'm not going there, right?
Mhm.
So I make my own choices, but I don't say that they're evil people because of it. I know that we are all completely different. We were raised by completely different people from completely different backgrounds who didn't even know each other, let alone themselves. And we're just fumbling through these marriages and stuff with no tools at all. And they were just these people, and they were doing their best, and they learned from their parents, and who harped on each other. And I mean, I know that in my first relationship, it's rather unfortunate that my first wife, that's the model she had, was, I'm going to harp on you and be that B word all the time, because that will get what I want, right? Which doesn't, which in my personality just pushes me away further.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not acceptable, so therefore, why are you here? Right? But
Yeah.
and I'm not saying this is her fault or anything, right? Like, we both had our issues in the relationship. There's no question. Um, and she wasn't an evil person for being that, ever, not ever. She was never an evil person. It was just a behavior set that she grew up with. So I
Mhm.
don't judge her based on that. I say those are habits that I don't want to be around, because I am not grown in myself enough not to take offense, right? Really.
Mhm.
They keep hitting my wounds. But when I finally discovered that I stopped placing my emotional well-being on everybody else's actions to conform with the actions that are right in my head, again, the fictional ones, the shoulds, I was way happier. And
Mhm.
so, like, one day I looked at the kitchen, and I go, I'm certainly not as neat as you are. You would go nuts in my house if you were to live here. Um, right. But it's a truth. And I've told you about this before. I'm not that guy. I'm never going to be that guy. I don't even want to be that guy. Um,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that I don't want you to be that guy. Right. It's like, I don't
Lucky
hold
for
you to my,
you,
yeah,
because
exactly.
it's
It would be
it's just
no
the way
go.
it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. That too bad. It's like, I mean, we
Yeah.
wouldn't be friends, obviously, if that was the case.
Wow.
But you know, but it's once I released that idea that you owed me something, even if you said it. Now here's another one, another should. Somebody makes an appointment with me, right?
Mhm.
And they forget, or they don't show up, or they're going to be an hour and a half late, or whatever, right? They phone me up, and they're apologizing all over themselves. They're whipping them. You can hear the cat of nine tails going, right?
Self-flagellation.
Yeah, exactly. They're really, really upset. And part of the reason is the rest of society takes offense at the world inconveniencing them, right?
Mhm.
Life happens. You forget. I forgive myself for forgetting, so I can forgive everybody else, right? It's like, that's the thing. And it's not, there's no even forgiveness anymore. There's not, I don't even have to think about it. Forgiveness is not even a key. You're already forgiven before it ever happens. It means that, oh, this is the way my day is going to go instead, right? And I just shift tracks. I just take that and just go.
Mhm.
I'm moving on. I'm not sitting there blaming them for wasting my time that day. I chose to be a part of this agreement, knowing full well that this agreement could go sideways. And that is the difference between somebody that owns themselves and discards the shoulds. Well, you should have been here. You should be more responsible to your word. You should, and that's that rule that you and I had talked about that said you should be impeccable with your word. Another Don Miguel Ruiz rule, and you should be impeccable with your word. That has nothing to do with anybody else but you, right? Nobody else.
Well, and that's actually one thing that I remember complaining to you
Hmm.
about, one of my friends saying I'm going to be there, and then they're 10 minutes late, then they're half an hour late, then they're 45 minutes late. Finally, I go do something else, and I'm all angry
Mm-hmm.
because I try and be impact. I mean, I'm familiar with the four agreements. I try and do that, but you're the one who said and pointed out quite correctly that exact fact. But that doesn't mean I should have an expectation.
That everybody else should do that.
Right. And
Should.
even under that,
Mhm.
they might be try and conform with those two, but they could be doing agreement number 4 where they're just doing their best at the time, and their best was whatever that was, and it had nothing to do with me.
Well, I mean,
And
I think that one of the things that we miss in that statement, just going there for a second, is
mhm,
everybody is always doing their best. Didn't you know? And they don't know that they're doing their best because
mhm,
in that moment, if they're not doing it, if they're alive, they're doing their best. The best is how much knowledge you have. The best is how much personal integrity you even own for yourself. The best is like you can't expect somebody to be on your level of best when they're still sleeping, right? I mean, it's you. So when you remove those expectations, when you remove those shoulds of everybody else, and you like, I mean, when you start removing the shoulds about yourself, exactly, you can start removing those shoulds about everybody else, right?
yeah,
It's like you don't do you're not sitting there cleaning the kitchen at all. I know this for a fact. 99.999999999% here that says when you are cleaning the kitchen, you're not going, oh, I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. I should do that. You're not saying that. Okay. What you're doing is something that makes you feel pleased. I like a clean kitchen. I've gotten so used to this. This is just habit now. There is no shoulds behind it. Maybe when you were a kid, there was some shoulds and expectations, but you became the person that did that. And so there is no shoulds in your mind around it. But because you own this rule for yourself, you are now trying to place it on everybody else
mhm, mhm,
because your parents said to you, you should, so we don't have to, right? And there is that should expectation from afar. It's not a should
mhm,
expectation of yourself anymore, but it is a should expectation of the rest of the world around you of how it should be conforming to
mhm.
your should. We use should a lot because we're just shooting ourselves.
Well, making sure I heard you right.
Yeah, I did say shoulding, not the other one.
It's interesting that I know for sure there's other times where I don't clean the kitchen,
Mhm.
or I clean the kitchen at some point, but then make a huge mess, and then it's late, and I need to go to bed, and go choose to after this go for a big walk and don't finish whatever the kitchen,
Mhm.
and go to bed and not worry about it.
Mhm.
Like I just go, okay, I'll just deal with it in the morning. Don't care.
Yeah.
And that actually for me is a little bit. It's good not to be too OCD, and be okay with it.
Mhm.
Like that's the thing where it's not. I'm not. I should have before. I should have stayed up till 12:30 to finish that or something,
Right.
right?
Exactly. And you don't have the
Hmm.
judgment around it, and you don't even really have a should there. You just understand yourself well enough to say, I will do it. I'm good.
Hmm.
Um, and if somebody else does it, then you're mildly surprised. You're like, oh, somebody cleaned this for me. Oh, that was
Yeah, but
great. Then yes.
shouldn't I feel guilty because I don't I you
I
know
think I think that I think
mm,
that in the scenario that you're talking about, you are so well familiar with yourself that you know that you will eventually do it anyway.
mhm.
It's not you're just leaving it there to have flies go around or anything like that. If you
Oh,
did
heck
that,
no.
you could understand the type of condemnational judgment you'd have on yourself, don't you
Yeah.
think? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, if you got into depression, like, I mean, depression is it is a really really tough place to be, and
Mm.
you can become a person that you're not used to when you are depressed, and you can have flies around your kitchen, and every time you look at it, that should comes up, and you go deeper into depression. So it feeds itself. It's a monster that feeds itself, and
Mhm.
so that should is there subliminally. But I think that because you are so comfortable with yourself and you understand that you will clean it up, that there is no guilt to it, because you're
Mm.
just postponing that for yourself. You're not
Mhm.
not going to do it.
Well, and I would say that maybe in the moment, like if I was in depression and the kitchen got to that state,
Hmm.
the fruit flies are swarming, um, which I've seen, not in my kitchen, I've
Hmm.
seen, at least not yet. Um, I won't necessarily like it in the moment,
Hmm.
but I know that when I'm a little more back up to normal and
Hmm.
I'm going to clean it, I will forgive myself and
Right.
understand agreement for that that's just where I was at.
Right. I was still
And
doing my best at that time,
yeah,
right? I was
yeah,
like, I
totally.
at that time, this is the best I can do.
Yeah.
Um, and that is good enough,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's like, so when we're talking about, because I'm going to go back to the shoulds of having other people do the kitchen chores that they should be doing. And I know, having felt that feeling and felt used, right? So let's go down this road. Um,
Hmm.
I let's go down this road. I have somebody else, like when I was in my first marriage, we had my stepdaughter, myself, and my wife basically living in the same place, and the son living next door. He would come over and he'd make stuff too, right? And so there was, four people utilizing the kitchen. Now, I was primarily responsible for a lot of the cleaning, and it was, people, they would come in, they'd leave the mess, and they'd go away. Typical teenage, welcome to the world of teenagers. And I would mostly, I'm fine, right? Like, I don't mind cleaning up and all that stuff. But there were times where it's just like, you guys never frickin' do anything. And I think that the biggest one for me was when my wife at the time would come home and just, there's this mess in the kitchen, and like freaking out that and then doing the whole you never clean up. And the resentment that happened in me was, no, you never clean up, right? And here you are complaining about, like my 5 dishes today, right? And that indignation that went along with that. And sometimes that was like the kids would not clean up and I'm tired that day, and I would really like them to have some personal responsibility, whatever that should is that I have in my mind that they should be doing. And after that relationship, once that was done, and once I figured some things out about myself, I said, I had that revelation of, I can do all of this, and it takes really not a lot of time. Doesn't really even take a lot of energy. Why
Hmm.
am I harping on these people? Because obviously they're not doing it, and they're probably not going to. They're not going to be that me that I am, right? They're not going to be me. Only I can be me, right? If they want to join me in that, they are welcome. and I will be grateful for anything they give, right? But what it did is it alleviated this mess of, you don't love me, you know, you don't respect my authority, or you don't respect the fact that I clean up after you. I don't get the acknowledgement. I don't, like all of this depressional crap that goes along with the expectation of what you should be giving me. And I stopped and I said, nobody should give me anything. There is no should giving me. There is stuff that I create. There's things that I choose, but nobody should give me anything. And so from the standpoint of releasing the shoulds in my life, all of a sudden I became grateful for everything anybody did give me, instead of focusing on what they weren't giving me. So I think that on the level of how should works really can be freeing when we stop really utilizing that word, that expectational, just loaded word around what they should be doing. Again, it's like you clean up the kitchen or you don't, right? It's Yoda. You don't try to clean up the kitchen. You either clean up the kitchen or you don't. You don't should clean up the kitchen. You clean up the kitchen or you don't. If you choose not to, that choice brings all of this, right? Fruit flies at the end of one of those roots, right? So if you don't clean up the kitchen, and if you do clean up the kitchen and you feel fulfilled by that, all you are doing, Dean, is complying with yourself on fulfilling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Other people don't have to fulfill you. You can do it just handily. Clean up the kitchen, fulfilled, right? Yeah. So and that's why, why the show on should. This is such a huge word, and I know that it doesn't seem like it's a huge word a lot of the time to us, but it is so, it's like a shackle of you are this slave to what should be happening, who you should be, what other people should be to you, and it's living in a fictional world of they owe me, or I owe them even. And we don't. We can be ourselves in any place that we are, and we can be grateful for anything anybody gives us. Like I'm grateful every time my wife touches my feet, right? Like I love having my feet rubbed, right? And I'm super grateful for any time she touches my feet. But I'm not sitting there going, well, she should touch my feet more, right? Well, she's my wife. If she cared about me, she'd know that touching my feet is the best thing, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like
classic line.
Exactly.
If she cared about me.
If she cared about me, like it's never a factor. It's not like she doesn't care about me. She doesn't like rubbing feet, perhaps, right? Maybe it's, and I'm fine with that, because this is the person that I want to be with. This person who doesn't like rubbing my feet, and especially if it's a demand, right? And I'm not saying that she does or she doesn't, because I really don't know her mind on that. But it's like, if I had that expectation, if I had that should, that would so erode, because literally massage is my favorite expression of love. When I was a kid, my mom went through, when I was 8 years old, my mom went through a massage course, and we were her guinea pigs. And that was the only time we really had any cool, intimate time with my mom, was when she was working the massage, right? She'd massage my back. And so I felt quite loved at that point, because that was that she didn't hug, she didn't do anything, right? But at that time, she was into it. She really enjoyed it. She even talked while she was doing it. It created an intimate moment that was a nice little bonding thing that I just didn't have in my life at the time. So massage became that kind of connection for me, and I love it. So if I placed that on my current wife and said, well, you know that massage is the thing that I most love and most connect. I've told you the story, right?
Yeah.
I've made it quite clear, but you're not massaging me. You obviously don't love me, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
and placing that should model of fiction
Yeah.
on a beautiful lady who
Mhm.
absolutely does love me,
Mhm.
and forcing her to conform to make me feel
Mhm.
better, right? It's like,
Mhm.
I don't want that.
Well, it's interesting too. We're talking about um, image of the other person, but I
Hmm.
still keep circling back to people when they're talking to themselves,
Hmm.
their self-image. I really like what you're talking about with gratitude
Hmm.
and being grateful for what we do have.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you've done a show on gratitude.
Not yet.
Uh, it's a big
Soon.
one,
Yeah.
and it's so powerful, right? So
It's so interesting how to get there. Like, I mean, I could go into it and I can say, here's where people are mistaken about gratitude. But anyway,
right.
continue. Keep
But
going.
I'm just saying, like, we're talking about the image of the other person, but again, I still think, okay, what's our self-image,
Hmm.
and what it should we be doing? What we should really be alert for those shoulds.
Hmm.
Aspiring to the self-image and being careful around how critical we are of ourselves compared to our self-image or a self-goal of what we should be.
Yep.
Um, and I love the idea of having gratitude for what we do have,
Hmm.
what we are like. Accepting who we are is a critical versus what we should be.
Right. Well, I mean, and I mean the whole idea of understanding any of the language that we use, and especially all of the subtleties that are attached to these big words, right? Whether we like it or not, should is a huge word in our vocabulary that can be limiting, and it's not the word itself, obviously, it's our thoughts and emotions attached to all of the makeup stuff that we make up about it, um, and it's just uh, uh, once you understand, once you have the idea around should, because you're going to go away from this conversation, you are going to not then every time you say should, you're going to go, oh, what was that there? Right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I do all the time. I'm just like, what should? Right? It's like should, but you're talking about self-image and our shoulds. They are really a reflection of like those should what we place on other people are a lot of the reflection of the things that we place on ourselves. And when you were talking about earlier, you said, and this just occurred to me while we were talking, you were talking about it's like, well, I do it, you should, right? Well, on some level, you think you should, right? As opposed to I do it because I choose. On some level, your your expressed should for everybody else is still a subtle should for yourself. Even though like I said before, it's become so much habit, it's easy, right?
Mhm.
But there still is, in order to be a good boy, Dean, you have to clean your kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And that's a have to. It's a need. It's a should. And I think that anybody, when we talk about OCD personalities, I need to do this or I don't feel good about myself. Um,
Mhm.
that whole idea of we are the product of the things we do, which is absolutely the things that we do are a product of us, not necessarily the opposite way. Um, and so when you have that kind of OCD, you are trying to fill a gap or a hole or something that's hurting or to be able to feel okay, right? Now, having said that, when you come to terms with and you truly start to understand yourself, all of a sudden doing those things still gives you that charge, You still, but every single time I do those things, I'm just like, I'm so grateful I can do this. I'm so grateful I can do this. It's a different rhetoric. It's a
Hmm.
completely
Hmm.
different rhetoric because now I'm grateful. Like, look at all, holy cow, look at all the stuff I got. Holy cow, I'm so glad that I have these talents. Oh, holy cow, I'm so glad my brain works this way because, or holy cow, I'm so into the fact that it's like I've just got somebody just gave me all these gifts. Um, and and the same thing happens when you are cleaning the kitchen. You stop cleaning the kitchen because you have to, and you start cleaning the kitchen because you love to. And there is a difference because when you clean the kitchen when you love to, it doesn't matter who made the mess.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
and that's the subtle difference. Even though in one instance you say, I clean the kitchen, it makes me feel better, and it's so by rote, and you can trust yourself, I'm going to clean the kitchen later. You can do all of those things, but there's still a kernel of the have to in there. In order to feel better, you have to, and so you can allow it. You're so used to it, and you know yourself so well that you will get that done later. That kernel doesn't have to come up and hit you in the face all the time, right?
Hmm.
It's like, I can do this later. It's not a problem. But if you did that and you left it and you left it and you left it and you left it on purpose, you would find yourself more and more
Yeah. True.
right? If there is a kernel of need there, that's what happens. If there isn't, then you go, I love cleaning up the kitchen. No, 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 no. Oh, don't worry about that. I'll grab that. No, sorry. No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Right? And it's like,
Yeah.
good. I love the kitchen like this. And then you go in
Yeah.
there and it's kind of dirty and it's like, okay, I'll get that later because I don't have time right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's never a question of, oh, well, they just left stuff into my way. Now it's right. Uh, that level of gratitude that comes with being able to not have a should attached to something is really quite phenomenal.
Hmm.
And just it's sort of like it feeds itself. I really don't have any way to describe it. And it's not like don't get me wrong here. I'm not that guy that's like, oh, I'm grateful all the time. No, I've got my challenges, man. I was like, there's some times that I go, and it's like, but I also have that personality that says, oh, why?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, it's a
why
good
is that?
place to be.
Yeah. Well,
Good
it's,
place.
I found that the more energy, and I mean, all you have to do is say, how much energy do I have? And how much of that energy am I using to wish that people would do things better, right?
Hmm.
Or wish that I was doing things better? Or
Hmm.
like, I mean,
Hmm.
do we wonder why we have no will? Because we're beating ourselves up so often, we just use our energy to do that, right? Oh, I should. No, stop. No, should.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
Yes, do or do not. That's fine.
Yeah.
And do not is fine,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, call me. Don't call me. I'm good.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm here.
Yeah.
But back to the whole should, and I mean, I think that, like you said, when you focus on yourself and you find out those shoulds, you are more willing to be able to release those shoulds on other people and understand how you're placing those shoulds on them and yourself. Um, I've told tons and tons of people that if they really want that goal of like, I just don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel bad. The only way not to feel bad is to find out why you think you're feeling bad, and figure out what that means, and try and find the reasons behind and the reasons that work for you, because it's not going to be the same for everybody, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
should is definitely a word that you want to use, make it a flag, but everybody's going to be able to move past it differently. Um, and it's not like they should be doing something. It just means that
Hmm.
there's always work to do. And
Hmm.
I think that people get really caught up in the work is too much work. Well, here's a key. The work is too much work because you are utilizing all your energy at beating yourself up before you ever get there. You're already utilizing all your energy on beating yourself up. Not only that, beating everybody else up because they don't conform to your shoulds. Um, and you just don't have a lot of energy left over for, we have moments of joy. Well, imagine if you got up every day and you said, I've got this beautiful bed and these covers, and I'm warm. The heat turns on by itself. The wind's blowing outside. It's a beautiful day because I'm warm.
Yeah.
Gratitude. And it's not I should be warm. I'm just grateful that I am, because I know that there's a possibility that tomorrow I won't be. Right? It's like,
yeah.
But it's, and circling back, saying, instead of should, say I choose. Like, just start doing that. Start figuring out that and see how that changes the energy that you have towards whatever task it is, whatever interesting thing is going on in life. It's like, I choose. No, I choose. I choose that. I've chosen this. Oh, this is part of that choice. Okay, I didn't realize that, but I'm resilient enough to be able to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to I choose this. Well, that shouldn't be happening, right?
Yeah.
It's like, of course it should be happening. Everything should happen because it's happening, right? Yeah. Should is definitely not a thing that it's a statement of fact. If it's happening, then it should be happening. It's just not where you would like what you would like to happen, right? It's like it's a lot more trying than I expected.
Yeah. Well, and I agree big time on the journey to self-awareness and thinking and trying to even getting to the place where having curiosity around why did I just get annoyed?
Well, I think that, well, I mean, to me, that's just a huge step, right? I mean, anybody that can actually start to question that in themselves, it makes me giddy. Like, I mean, I've been at personal growth since I was in my teens, right? And so I've had a lot of years of work on this, and it was not easy. I will tell anybody if they're in this personal growth thing, this is not easy. First off, you have to face yourself. And that is the scariest thing when you start recognizing what you've been lying about. Let's equate this to Noom. Okay. One of the things that I really liked about Noom, and it is an app that helps you move past your weight issues, I guess, would probably be the best way I'd put it. But it talks to you about, oh, this is the calories. These are your calorie counts. This is what you've been putting in your body, and this is what you should be putting in your body. Now, this is something that they're not teaching us in school for some unknown reason. Or if they did, we didn't care. Because I know we did have nutrition class at some point. And
at least one.
Yeah,
it's a good hour.
Yeah, a good hour. Yeah, it's like this is whatever. We're in our teens. We can eat anything and stay skinny forever. Not so much anymore. But so what Noom does is it shows you exactly how many calories, not exactly, but mostly how many calories you've been eating per day. Right. And when we're talking about calories, and one of the things that I discovered about myself when I went on it was that I was probably eating anywhere between 3,005 to 7,000 calories per day. And as an active male, which I wasn't really at the time, as an active male of my age, I should be consuming about 2,700 calories. So understand that I recognized in that moment as a cognizant human being that there is no way I couldn't gain weight under those circumstances. There is no way in the world that I could take that weight off because I did not burn as many calories as I was consuming. So the body has to put it somewhere, right? And so therefore it packs it on as extra weight. It is no different in that realization that said, oh no, I didn't really want to know that at that time, right? I did because I was after trying to figure that out. But up until that time, it's just like, yeah, well, that's just what we do, right? That's just what we do.
Yeah.
But once you have that piece of information, you can't ignore it anymore, right? It is now part of your lexicon, and you got to go, oh, it's self-discovery. And when you wake up to that self-discovery, now the hard work starts. Now we've got to go through our cravings, and we got to figure out how to sub in some other stuff while still being okay and satisfied. Like there's this whole psychology to it that you have to go through. And personal growth is exactly the same way. It is about awareness and about the energy that it takes to be able to do that. It's doubly hard though, because you see parts of yourself that you were doing that you were hoping you weren't. It's no different than if you took some kind of test, right? That says, I've taken a personality test, right? And I do all these things, and I have this self-image that says I am this person. I've always been this person, right? No. And this personality test says, you're not that person. You think that you're that person. You keep telling yourself that you're that person, but you have these personality traits over here, and you keep wondering why you keep pushing people away. Well, it's because of those personality traits over here, even though you think that you're over here, right? You cannot, once you wake up to an illusion, it is really hard to be able to, first off, let go of the illusion.
Right.
You tend to push those things away. No way, I'm not like that. Screw that. And I'm not, it's like, I'm not that person. I've always been this person. But it eventually eats away at your psyche, and you can't unlearn stuff that you learn around this.
Right.
As much as, ignorance was bliss is all I can say. This is personal growth, ladies and gentlemen. Ignorance was bliss.
Well, I think you actually hit a really good nail on the head in that stuff going, why is this happening? Why is my life like this? Why am I unhappy? And you can be confused, but if you start digging and you start getting some tools and getting some notions and understanding, you start examining bits and pieces of who you are and how you act, and whether you're trying to conform to this ideal that isn't really you, and so on, that can gain a lot of understanding, and you have the ability to change too.
Well,
right?
but again, it's hard. This is a
hard.
hard thing. It's like, it's no different than weight loss. It's really hard to do because you have ingrained habits. And because you have ingrained habits, and because not only that, our brain has convinced us that we are those habits. That's just me, right? Like, I run into so many people that says, oh, I'm just like that. As if that explains everything, right? And it's like, you may well be just like that, but let me tell you that because you're like that, these are all the things that are against you now.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and these are the things that you go, this shouldn't be happening, this shouldn't be happening, this shouldn't be happening, this shouldn't be happening all the time, because you choose not to change and see who you are.
Well,
right?
And I mentioned to you the other day, I was kind of laughing because I'm a Taurus.
Yeah.
Right. And whenever you look at a thing about, Sagittarius is like this and Aquarius is like this, Taurus is like, top thing on the list is stubborn.
Yeah. Notoriously stubborn.
Wow, you're just going for it today, right?
Yeah.
And I've always known I'm a Taurus, I'm stubborn, good stuff, right?
Right.
And now I'm just going, why is being stubborn a good stuff? Is a good stuff? Should I be proud of that?
Well, again, it's why do you need to be proud of it? Why can you not utilize that as a tool in your personality, depending on whatever situation, right? There is nothing wrong with being stubborn, and any of the signs can be stubborn, obviously. I've certainly met a lot of Tauruses, and that seems to be a trait of theirs, right?
Yeah.
Like, and not only stubborn, but stubborn beyond rationality on some levels.
Mm-hmm.
But now, that just may happen to be that those people happen to be Tauruses that like, I mean, who knows? I really don't know. All I can say is whether it's a part of mythology that we've taken on the level of astrological signs, because it's always possible that because it came down the pike and people have been talking about it since we were kids, we pick up on that and we conform. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just who you are in any given situation. But is that something to be proud of? It's like, well, it's a tool, and you can be proud of it or not proud of it as you want, because you're making it all up, right? Like, you make it up, not them.
Yeah.
And you can say that being stubborn may be holding you back
Mm-hmm.
to achieving whatever goal that you're looking for, and
Big time.
might be wanting to change that habit. And again, it's just habit.
Is it, and you talk about habits, I also was thinking of coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
Are those habits coping mechanisms? But I'm thinking, okay, am I stubborn? Does that mean I resist change? Am I not adaptable? Am I not open to change? Am I not like, who do I want to be?
Well, and again, it's like you wake up to the possibility of something different, and that's the thing, is that most people don't even. I mean, I've got a friend that just says, "Yeah, I don't even want to look at that." I can respect that. That's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have any room to complain to me about all of the other stuff, right? He's like, I just go, hey, you choose to be who you are. And with that comes all of this stuff, right? You don't want to change it. You want the rest of the world to change, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the world is never going to change, and you're going to continue complaining about it for the rest of your life. That's just the way it works. But I don't condemn them for it. I just go, I totally get why you want to be there.
Yeah.
I would say that it is really, 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 really hard to face your pain. It is really, really, really hard to open up the wounds and find out what that is. It is. This is not like when you walk down this personal growth idea, all of a sudden you can't be the same, and it hurts. It is a lot of tough work to be able to do this stuff. And so I totally get why people would not want to do it. It is worth the trip. I can tell people, I can say that there is gold at the end of this rainbow, and there's lots of it.
I would say.
But there is no end to the rainbow. There's just gold along the rainbow. It's just there's never ending. I think that when we die, it's done. But
yeah, true.
Up until then, it's much fun to be able to learn.
Yeah, I love it. Just so much more happy in life when, especially, I looked at negativity, some of the fighting about negativity, and some of that leads into, using gratitude or positive affirmation, or even waking up and saying, I'm going to have a good day. And, there's a lot of good things there.
Well, I'm thinking that we sort of are at the end of this. And just because of how we're trailing off on it. So I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of a summary here.
Yeah.
Should is absolutely tied to expectation. Is absolutely a thing that I see as something that we should be. I keep using the word, but something that we can really, really look at in our lives at what kind of expectation it is really forming around ourselves and the people around us. And I think that if we're going to use the word should, we can say, I choose or I choose not to um, as opposed to the rule of should. And I think that we get being locked into uh, a behavior that is expected of us a lot of the times, and getting, sort of tied into that expectation of others that we don't want to, because I know that I fight against it. And I know lots of people that do. I think that we can start to be able to curb that by understanding and utilizing should as a really good flag of saying, wait a minute, there's something else at work here. I'm not confident, or I'm trying to live up to somebody's ideal, even if it's my own ideal or my parents' ideal that they placed in me or whatever, and really take responsibility for the choices that I make and the consequences of those choices that I make, and saying, stop placing those shoulds on other people, but especially stop creating a fictional character of the perfect Drew or Dean or person that I should be inside, and just go, you know what? I am this, and I choose to move towards that direction because that's the type of person I want to be, or I desire to be that person. So I'm going to make my choices based on that. I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Um, it's not like I should not make mistakes. We must, in order to be able to move forward. So I'm going to bring this to a close. I want to thank my absolute great friend, Dean McDonald, for coming on the show and sharing his experiences with us, and talking with us about this word. And you brought up some fantastic points, and especially to start with, to really get that conversation rolling and get us to look at some of the things that I think that we think about should, or think it is in our lives, that even though there is some flavor to that, I think underlyingly we are really utilizing it not in a good way, to achieve our goals. And now that we know, Yeah. All right. This is it. Thanks for joining the Aspiring Master. My name is Drew. That was Dean, and we'll see you next time.